The transfer portal cycle is pretty much done for college football. Did Michigan State do more good than bad? Well, I think so, but it's pretty clear that not everyone here agrees.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/firetv locked on to learn more. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans. It's your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below your emoji of choice, either a thumbs up or a thumbs down as it pertains to Michigan State football's offseason, because that is where we are going to start the show today. We're going to talk about the portal cycle, the whole offseason, the players Michigan State added, the ones that they've lost because, well, this is a few months old news that the winter portal window is now closed, but just last Friday, the spring window closed. Now, you can still add players. You just had to have your name in the transfer portal by last Friday. So, guys, after Michigan State just added 3 players in the last 4 days here, think that they're also pretty much done adding players too. There could be another 1 or 2 added, but for the most part, yeah, dust has settled on this offseason. So with that said, after 18 commits in the transfer portal for Michigan State, what do the experts say? You know, like guys like Rivals, guys like 24/7 Sports. Well, Rivals has Michigan State as a 33rd overall ranked transfer portal class, 7th in the Big Ten, so just a notch above average in the Big Ten. And 24/7 Sports, they're a little friendlier. They said 24th overall best transfer portal class, 8th in the Big Ten. So not as good in the conference as Rivals thinks, but anyway you slice it, decent is what they are telling you. And you kind of get to that number after you have 18 commits. That is certainly more than the average, but it's not, north of 20 like you see with other programs or like you saw with Michigan State even last year. So guys, who cares about the experts, right? Who knows their team better than us, Michigan State fans? So when I went out on Twitter, I said, I'm going to ask a question. Let's do this. When you add it all up, players retained, players that left, the players that you added on this team, how did Michigan State football do in the portal this offseason? Account for both winter and spring windows. I said, give me a thumbs up, give me a thumbs down. And a few of you beautiful people out there, you said, well, I would like a meh option, or I'm not going to make a ruling until it's week 1, or I'm not going to, say anything until after the Boston College game, which you want to just take that patience and rationality and cram it up your you-know-what? What do you think this is? You think we just do calm conversation here? No. We have to make a referendum on this before May even appears on the calendar. So, nearly 700 votes. And guys, this was a pretty close one. It was a 60-40 split, 60%. Looking on the sunny side of things, they are a thumbs up. I am part of the 60%. But still, this isn't like North Korean voting numbers. This wasn't like a 99.99 to 0.01% vote. No. This was close. So before I talk about why I think this is a thumbs up, allow me to speak for the other side of the aisle here, because also while I am having my thumbs up, I'm not saying that you're an idiot if you think that, this offseason was a little underwhelming in the portal. I largely think it is. We'll get to my reasoning here in a little bit, believe me. But let's talk about why maybe it's no mystery as to why 40% of the fan base thinks that this was a thumbs down offseason. For starters, I always think of who's the best player that you lost in the portal, because Michigan State, we've been no stranger to losing some key players in the portal in the last few years. This year, Charles Brantley. And that's nothing to sneeze at. He was a really solid player for Michigan State. Pro Football Focus had him as the second best defensive players out of guys that played regularly last year. Jordan Turner being the first guy. And that's not just the Pro Football Focus numbers. Guys, our eyeballs taught us that. He played really well last year. Now, of course, another year where injuries bit him at the end, and it wasn't really a surprise that he went into the portal since he did it 16 other times while at Michigan State. But still, you lost, arguably, your best returning defensive player. That's not a good thing. Okay, so that's where the thumbs down gets out there. Now, this is maybe where most of you thumbs downers have a gripe with Michigan State football and their offseason, because I'm not going to tell you that you have to be convinced that the rush end position haul is going to be really up to snuff and just right all the wrongs of last year. Like, going into this offseason, I think it's pretty clear the position groups they had to address. Edge, or defensive end, or rush end, whatever you guys want to call it. The secondary, the offensive line, wide receiver, those were the top four. We're going to talk about it later. I think the secondary was addressed, the offensive line addressed, the wide receiver room certainly addressed. Okay, that's silver, bronze, and whatever medal they give up for fourth place addressed. The gold medal finishers, though, that room that had that historic streak of 2 months without a sack last year, yeah, they did address it, but maybe not with the star power that we all expected to or all hoped for. Like, look, guys, I like David Santiago from Air Force, young kid. He had 23 pressures last year. That was more than anyone on Michigan State's roster, but I will also say this. Life playing football is a little different in the Mountain West than it is the Big Ten. Can he come here and replicate 23 pressures? I would be shocked if you're a little underwhelmed that he is arguably the top guy in that rush end group out of the portal players. Who am I? You know, the other guy they got, Anelu Lafayette. Okay, there's a lot of hype around him from a few players and fans out there. Former 4-star, goes to Wisconsin. Awesome, great, except one problem. Didn't play a single snap for the Badgers last season, and it's not like this was a Badgers team that marched their way to Pasadena. That was kind of a lowly season for the Badgers. Still, hard to find snaps for a true freshman, but man, you're really just looking at a blank canvas and hoping that the correct amount of paint gets thrown on this, that he could fully materialize into this 4-star picture that he once was out of high school. And then you get Isaac Smith from Texas Tech. 9 pressures, 1 sack. He lost his starting role during the season. I'm not here to tell you that that's going to be the answer. So if you're a little underwhelmed, again, not going to call you an idiot. Like, yeah, you could talk yourself into seeing the vision. You could also say to yourself, well, it possibly can't be worse than last season, which I do think there's some credence to that. But yeah, I'm not going to say that you're a clown at all for giving a thumbs down if that's where you're most focused on. And guys, also, I do want to shine a light here on the running back room, because maybe that was a little bit underwhelming too. Perhaps flying under the radar as far as, you know, what they did, or I guess rather what they didn't do in the portal cycle, especially for a position group that always seems to be swimming with guys out of the Power 4 ranks that are looking for something else. But Michigan State, they're taking the gamble. I mean, they're saying, hey, guys, we're going to get Eli Tolliver from Sacramento State out of the FCS, and you have to believe us that we know what we are doing. Or, hey, one of these sophomores, Mekhi Frazier, Brandon Tulis, both guys got 7 carries last year. One of these guys are going to hit too. Or maybe true freshman Jace Richardson. Just believe us, guys. But what if I don't necessarily believe yet in the running backs? Am I going to be called a bad fan for that? Am I going to be called an idiot? Wouldn't be the worst thing I've ever been called on this show. But yeah, I don't know, guys. Like Eli Tolliver, I'm sure this staff has saw something on film. I'm sure in interviews with him, they really enjoyed what they had to hear. But when I'm just looking at numbers, and numbers don't paint a full picture, of course, but he wasn't in the top 100 amongst FCS running back for average yards after contact. Now, why do I look at that stat? Why am I just cherry picking that one? Well, gee willikers, I don't know. I've watched Michigan State football the last few years, and I know that our running backs get contacted like immediately when they get the ball. So yeah, I apologize if that's just the one stat I just fly to like a moth to a flame, but he wasn't even average in FCS for breaking yards after contact. Anyway, he did have 30 missed tackles forced. That is a Pro Football Focus stat, which was good for 7th best in the Big Sky Conference. However, when you zoom out and you look at the full FCS, that was 60th overall amongst FCS running backs. So, look, guys, maybe he's fine. Maybe he's solid. I also do think Michigan State lost more than we think, and maybe this is just a soapbox that I'm kind of in the minority on, of thinking that Nate Carter and K'Ron Lynch-Adams were pretty solid running backs. Just running backs with very little help here last year. Don't believe me? Go talk to the Atlanta Falcons front office, who made him a priority undrafted free agent. And I know that's not a draft pick, and what are you talking about? That's still a plus running back in college, in my opinion. So the fact that you're going from him to largely inexperienced guys, okay, that's where I see the thumbs down. But again, hey, a lot of negativity in that first segment. It will get better because I truly believe that this was a better offseason. We're going to talk a lot more about that here in a hot segment. First, need to talk everyone's ears off about Gametime, the greatest ticketing app out there. There is nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. And God, I hope Game 6 gets back to Little Caesars Arena. We will see. The NBA owes the Pistons roughly 57 makeup calls, but that is not what this ad copy says. I'm sorry, Gametime. I'm getting off topic here. Guys, let's say that Game 6 happens, or let's say you want to go to Comerica Park. You want to see a nice game in the summer, and you don't have tickets. As you're standing outside the stadium and the first pitch is about to happen in 15 minutes, fear not, you're still going to save great money with Gametime because it's not just their flash deals throughout the week that have you saving great money. It is those last-minute ticket deals. You can save up to 60% off your tickets, guys. It is amazing at Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. It's last-minute tickets. Lowest prices guaranteed. All right, back over here in Thumbs Up land. I do want to reiterate here, I am part of the 60% of you guys that voted on Twitter and thinks that this offseason with the additions, the subtractions, the whole equation with the portal was still largely a success. Is it a success with a capital S? I maybe not. Maybe only one of those letters in the word is capitalized. But yeah, still, if I had to choose between good or bad, I would go good here. And also, maybe it's because that we had different expectations, maybe as part of the 60%ers, that like this wasn't going to be an offseason where you could just hone in on one position group and go all in. Like, yes, we need a defensive end. Yes, we need to fix the pass rush, but you also need offensive linemen. You also had to redo the entire wide receivers room. You also had to redo the entire defensive secondary. So I don't know what the Michigan State budget is going into the offseason, and I know that in theory, the salary cap is limitless, but what were the donors willing to put up? What was your NIL pool looking like? And could you disperse that amongst 4, if not 5 position groups of need here? That's what they had to do. And I think they did it pretty well. We had talked about the defensive end position. Could that be underwhelming? Yes, understandable. But I think they did a really solid job with the other 3 position groups that we talked about. Guys like Connor Moore, bolstering the offensive line, okay? Montana State kid. You had to beat out Ohio State for his services. I, for one, think that when the Buckeyes want a player, that you should want him too. Michigan State wins that one, and that's going to be a big step up last year from the right tackle position where a lot of pressure came from. Like, I'm not saying that Connor Moore is going to be second team all Big Ten. I don't think he's going to be in the running for lineman of the year, but I think if he just holds his own and is at least like a tick above average, market improvement on the offensive line. You also got Matt Goldman out of Wake Forest, 1,500 snaps the last 2 years from Goldman. Wake Forest had most of their success running the ball off of his gaps, his left shoulder and his right shoulder. He was just fine for the Deacons. He also added Luka Vincic, Caleb Carter, loads of experience and versatility as a backup. I'm not saying Caleb Carter, again, is going to be this guy that is going to move up to a day 2 draft pick. No, but hey, that's experience coming off the bench, something you did not have any of last year for Michigan State. The other 2 position groups, wide receiver and secondary. The wide receiver room, guys, like when I've been poking around, asking people that are like in these practices, in these scrimmages, hey, who's popping out? Not just at the wide receiver group. I just left it blank. I said, any position you got for me, I'll take. Couple people said Omari Kelly has been showing out at practice lately. Now, is he going to be as good as Nick Marsh? I don't know. I got a hard time maybe believing that, but the guy didn't get first team all conference at Middle Tennessee State for no reason. He didn't rack up 800 yards for the Blue Raiders for no reason. I'm hearing good things out of spring practice. Yes, we have been burnt on this before, talking about guys in the spring. We all have, I'm sure, in the world of just, college football fandom. But I think this is the one that I'm going to throw my basket, or all my eggs in the basket of right here. Omari Kelly. Christian McCray, you've heard us talk about him all offseason. The guy was a lightning rod for Kent State, who largely had a drought of a season. But if there's anything to smile about, it was Christian McCray. we've talked about it when it comes to the McCray conversation, that Brian Lindgren, Jonathan Smith, they like a slot receiver, which they didn't really have a pure one last year. They tried it with Isaiah Johnson, solid enough. Hopefully you get a step up with Christian McCray and also the younger guys too. Evan Boyd out of Central Michigan. You got Rodney Bullard out of Valdosta State. I believe it was an 1,000-yard receiving guy. If he's off the bench too, sure, whatever. And also just to, reiterate what they've done with the secondary, because we've been doing a lot of this because they just added some guys the other day. But you got a Najee Burt. You got Malcolm Bell. Both of those guys, Najee Burt being out of Eastern Carolina, Malcolm Bell being out of UConn, were either the highest ranked or the second highest ranked guys on their defense at a lower level. You got Joshua Eaton, who that's another name that I've heard when I'm going around and asking people who's stunting right now. Joshua Eaton is one of those guys at that cornerback position. And just recently, Anthony Pinnis and Tracy Revels, too. I really do like the Tracy Revels pickup out of Bowling Green. Talked about him on yesterday's show, how he's kind of like a good chess piece. He does a little bit of box safety, does a little bit of nickel, does a little bit of free safety. Could even work his way into a starting role here. So that's what I like about the addition. But for the thumbs up to really just get hammered home here, in this day and age of college football, in where Michigan State fits in the landscape right now of college football. And by that, I mean the very uncomfortable statement of not necessarily a big dog right now, right? Like, we're trying to work our way up. Things could get better. We're certainly, geared for it with the resources that you have being in the correct conference, but let's not kid ourselves. Michigan State has had some players picked off their roster as of late. Like, we just talked about Chuck Brantley actually this year, of course. But that's like the only one that I really would lose any minutes of sleep over this year. I think the player retainment is something that you have to focus on. Again, especially with the world of college football as it is today, where you can just have your roster turn over just like that. Michigan State has had it happen to them, especially in the spring portal cycle. But keeping guys like Nick Marsh around, who what's the word they use? Allegedly. Yeah, there we go. That'll cover my bases there. Was allegedly tampered with. Who could say if that happened? Who could say if other programs from the SEC, maybe even your own state, were trying to get his services for next year? That would never happen, right? Anyway, I think keeping him around, seismic shift, like maybe the story of the portal cycle for Michigan State. I mean, keeping your stud receiver, the best freshman receiver whose name was not Jeremiah Smith in the Big Ten. Yeah, that's going to help an offense next year, an offense that needs a lot of help. You also kept Aiden Childs, too, and I'm not going to claim to know that there was any schools that were trying to get him to go there, but with the quarterback being topsy-turvy every year in the portal, especially with the whole Tennessee drama, that's not to be taken for granted that you are returning a guy that is as talented as Aiden Childs is, with still a lot of refining to do, but still, a plus quarterback in college football. Also, guys, and I don't know if these guys were tampered with, of course, but hey, your left tackle, Stanton Ramel. I'm sure a program could have seen a guy with 12 games of Power 4 experience as a redshirt freshman and think, I would like that former four-star, actually. He would have really helped this offensive line room. Or guys like Jordan Hall, who's had a ton of starts in his career already. I think retaining who they did on the roster really just tips me over the edge of, okay, was this a thumbs up or a thumbs down to just being positive? So that's where it's at right now. I like what they've done with 3 of those 4 top position groups of need and the retainment of the players. Guys, yeah, I like it. Now, you guys had a lot of good comments too. We're going to get to these comments, and then I'll add comments on top of your comments, and then it'll be a whole comment sandwich on the other side of this. But first, you need to talk your ears off about FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA playoffs are almost here. Why do I keep saying that? They are already here. Come on, Matt, tighten it up. Anyway, FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you will get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Guys, I love how FanDuel makes it easy to bet, whether it's picking my favorite teams or diving into the player props. We're talking 3-pointers, steals, assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. And guys, if I could just get off the NBA for a little bit, one of my favorite events of the entire year coming up this weekend, the Kentucky Derby. Get it on with the FanDuel Racing app too. I just want to throw that out there. God, I cannot wait for that. I'll be giving my picks at the end of the week, but until then, Guys, keep all the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Do not miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Again, guys, that's over at FanDuel.com. All right, let's get to your comments right here. Anything from the positive to the negative, and also a comment about Dylan Tatum at the very end that I just do want to elaborate on as well. With his transfer portal recruitment, and did Michigan State make a mistake here? Uh-oh. Anyway, Bull Sparty wrote into the question, this is twofold. Did we get better? Probably. Was it good enough? No. Now, this is where the conversation can go in 100 different directions. Does good enough mean like college football playoff in year 2? I would say no. Michigan State did not get that good. Are they good enough to go over 5.5 wins and make a bowl game for the first time in 4 seasons? I think so. I've been burned on that a few times, but yes, I think so, especially where football games are won in the trenches. Can the defensive line hold their end of the bargain? That's the biggest question going into the season right now, but I think the offensive line can be solid enough to at least give Michigan State some life here. So I think things can be trending upward. I think they did get better, yes, but is it enough? It depends what your definition of enough is. Now, trouble with the snap. Wrote in, trouble with the slap. Excuse me. Maybe this was, no, certainly not Juwan Howard writing this in, because there was a trouble with the slap for this writer here. My vote is meh. Now, what are we doing here? Just a meh? Come on. No, you got to be decisive. Let's go here. They went on to go right. Missing a stud at defensive end and running back. Wide receiver probably got better. Everything else probably about the same. You know what? I do want to add some more context too with this defensive end conversation here, because like a stud at defensive end is the part of the comment that I want to pull out here. And again, like I want to reiterate, I get maybe why they couldn't spend the big bucks for a really nice defensive end, right? Like you had a lot of position groups that needed a lot of love. Even a Jonathan Smith's second offseason. Want to call that an excuse? Fine. I just call that a reason of just spending your dollars like a wise GM should or would. But anyway, it doesn't like help the fact that when you go on 24/7 Sports and you look at the 4-star defensive ends out of the transfer portal there, yes, you get your classic ones, guys, right? Like all the SEC schools like LSU, Alabama, like the names got some 4-star defensive ends. But also these schools did too. Like West Virginia got one. Wisconsin got not one. They got 2. Missouri, they got 2, but by now it's pretty well established that their NIL is doing okay down at Mizzou. And also, hey, they also win games now these days. Texas Tech, another good NIL school. They got 2 really good defensive ends. Kentucky, who does not care about football, they even got a 4-star defensive end. Oklahoma State, you want to talk about NIL? How about the reverse of that? They got nothing down there. They got a 4-star defensive end, though. Vanderbilt, they got a 4-star defensive end. And UCF, they got a 4-star defensive end, too. So, sure, you could listen to my reasoning of why they didn't get one all that you want. And I could say it all that I want. But, like, well, hold on. If they're getting 4-star defensive ends, then where's ours? Why do we just have 3-star guys? Like, what's going on here? But anyway, I get the complaint. If you're not satisfied with what they did at defensive end, you're just going to have to see it to believe it. And hopefully we actually do see it this year. Spench 27 wrote in, got better in a few key areas. If Childs makes a leap, could be a bounce back season. No one benefited from this transfer portal cycle more than Aiden Childs. They focused on the offensive line, got 2 really solid transfers there. They also re-upped the wide receiver room. They brought they brought Marsh back out of the fold. So, yeah, I don't think that there's any excuses for Childs to not have a solid season coming up, especially when you add in the fact they brought in quarterback coach John Boyer into East Lansing to really just specifically help, well, you guessed it, the quarterback. It is all focus on Childs this year. I think he can deliver. Will he? Ooh, stay tuned to find out. That MSU dude wrote in, they're filling holes. Pause. Good call on the pause there. So I can't be too mad. And then also wrote, love that Bowling Green safety. Yes, Tracy Revels, talked a little bit more about him yesterday. But yeah, the really TLDR, the too long didn't read, is, like we said earlier, he could play some box. He could play some nickel. He does have some free safety experience as a freshman at an FBS level. Now, of course, it was the MAC out of Bowling Green, but even against the board with group of 5 programs, freshmen rarely play, but this one did better than a lot of other ones at that safety position, according to Pro Football Focus. And also, you can just see it too with his versatility. Could he actually be a starter here next year? I don't think it's out of the question, especially for that nickel spot, but yeah, you have to wait and see. I know we say that a lot. We got to wait and see, but unfortunately, a lot of these are still just question marks that we can be confident or not confident about. Michigan Gander wrote in, would love to see one more edge. Overall, was super happy with how it went. Secondary depth, as we know, can turn a season to SHI, it's a family show, very quickly. Now, do you know what else can turn a secondary and the season bad very quickly? It's the lack of a pass rush. Oh, man, because I'm going back to last spring portal season now where we got Ed Woods, a really solid transfer out of Arizona State, and actually a guy that was going to be a starter and eventually was a starter, of course. But you don't come around those a lot there in the spring portal cycle, especially if you're a team kind of rebuilding like Michigan State. A lot of fans said, oh, man, he was so underwhelming this season. And I guess, but he was out there covering receivers for 27 minutes at a time. Hoomst could have been a really good cornerback last year for this team. Anyway, I'm getting way off topic now. TC Brunzi wrote in, the loss of Jonathan Kim to graduation is the biggest hole to fill. That's not a joke at all. And I don't think he meant to write that as a joke, but that not enough focus is getting put on that. And of course, that's my fault that not enough focus is getting put on that. I'm the one that decides what we talk about on this show. But that's seismic. That's big. And I know not a lot of games last year came down to last-second field goals, although I can think of one that did, the Maryland game. That went really well. But he had one of the strongest legs in the Big Ten, one of the best kickers in the conference, arguably, maybe not even arguably, the nation. He was picked up by the Bears, undrafted free agent, for a good reason. And yes, what was his field goal percentage? 80 whatever percent. He was also kind of the victim of his own success with that too, because a lot of those misses came from beyond 45 yards, beyond 50 yards, lengths that college kickers don't often get trotted out for. But yeah, Jonathan Kim, losing him, that's tough. Because guys, we talked earlier in the show about, hey, who have I been hearing was doing really well at spring practice? Now, I've only heard from two people, and it's not like a referendum on, what's going to happen this fall. I just said it was a little, I just heard it was a little shaky. I just heard that, there's going to be a little step back from Jonathan Kim. And in a season, in a sport where more often than our hearts would like, it comes down to one possession, we might see the ramifications of that. Or, hey, this could all be proven wrong, and there's not going to be any issue with the kicking game. When has there ever been kicking problems in East Lansing? Anyway, let's try to pick up the mood here. Fierce Spartans wrote in, everything besides D-line and linebacker seems fine, but without those two being good, this team could still miss a bowl game even with the favorable schedule. Maybe the offense will be enough to offset it, though. The offense has got to be at least average in the Big Ten, and I know that is not asking a lot here. If you go back the last few years, you look at the stats, you look at the points per game, you would be proven wrong. That is asking a lot, but that could be enough to just at least pull Michigan State to that 7-win mark, dare I say 8-win mark. But also I do want to add this. I have been hearing good things about the linebackers. The athleticism has been ramped up a little bit. I'll leave it at that. I am hopeful for the linebackers. But yeah, that defensive line, that's what I'll be losing sleep from now until not even kickoff. Kickoff of the 5th week. Before we have a definitive answer, that's where I'll be losing sleep. We're going to talk about Dylan Tatum here to end the show here, because Jamal wrote in, should have retained the governor. Now, of course, he's talking about Dylan Tatum here. I think that's a miss and will be felt this season along with Cinco. Now, Cinco, Chuck Brantley, of course, but Dylan Tatum. Now, this is a dialogue that we've been having the last few days here, of course, because he went into the transfer portal, and that was a pretty big shock when it first happened. And then I talked to some people, and they say, well, that's kind of a mutual parting of ways, because at the end of spring practice, didn't look like he was going to get this starting role. Looked like he was going to be more of a depth player, maybe the first guy off the bench. I talked to one person who said, he might have been doing more work with the threes than he was the ones. But any way you slice it, the consensus seemed to be that, okay, no starting role for Dylan Tatum. Maybe it's because the injury last year really set him back. Whatever the reason was, okay, fine. I get it. Greener pastures for him. He doesn't see himself as a depth piece, and I wouldn't either, so go for it. Now, this is where I'm starting to like question what's really going on here. And maybe not even like, hey, was I lied to? I don't think I was lied to. I wonder if this materializes what I'm about to say. Do we have like an evaluation issue with the staff? Because Dylan Tatum visiting Florida coming up here. Like, I could understand it if it was like another Power 4 school that's, doesn't have high stature. Perhaps like, oh God, who do I want to throw under the bus here? Oklahoma State would be a good one, but Baylor perhaps, or Northwestern if you want to stay in the conference. Maybe a UCLA, go follow Coach Mead out there. But when you're looking at a program and he's getting a visit, or he's visiting a team that is like gunning for an SEC title this year, that has very high hopes, that should be a good team. You're telling me we didn't have any use for him? Like, Florida Gators down in Gainesville. Now, is he going to start day one for the Gators? If he goes there again, like they're not close to the finish line as far as I'm concerned. But if he goes there, I know he's like a depth piece. He's a second string piece. Like, you're telling me, no disrespect to the guys in our roster right now, but like, I don't think that the roster talent for talent is as good as Florida's. So that's going to be interesting. If in a world he does go to Gainesville, he comes off the bench, or maybe even works his way into a starting role and has like a productive season for the Gators, that's going to be one that we look back on and think, how you weren't able to just make him happy, keep him here? Why wasn't he a starter if he was good enough to be like a Florida backup? I'm going to keep my eye on that one. And I know you guys are too. Again, like this has been just like a whirlwind of a conversation here, but yeah. When Dylan Tatum transferred, we also said, like, the only way this would look really bad for Michigan State is if he goes somewhere and he is really productive for them. Like, let me scroll back of my notes here. I don't know. Did we talk about the secondary and how they needed depth here? Oh, yeah, that's right. We just did. Said goodbye to a guy that was also like a corner. Could use him as a safety, a nickel, but decided that, like, oh, he wasn't really like good enough to be here. Odd. That would be odd if that's what happens. So, yeah, we'll keep our eyes on that one. All right, guys. Hey, love you all. Take care of yourselves. We will be back tomorrow. We could have some basketball news coming up, whether it's not talking about Darius Adams, not trying to tease anything, but more so for like, hey, who are MSU's opponents going to be next year? That could be coming up pretty soon here, guys. It's that time of year. All right, guys. Take care of yourselves. Love you all. Go green.